In this fifth section, we'll be covering access to the data in the system. In this first video, we'll go through the first element of the access model and start with the top level, understanding the OWDs or organizational-wide default settings. Let's look a bit more at the big picture first to understand how the access model and the structure of Salesforce works. Think of it as a multi-layered system, a bit like entering an office building whereby you have a pass to enter where you need to be. A profile functions a bit of it like that. So our first level is the organization or entering the office building. As we've done in section 3.5, we can restrict access with trusted IP ranges for the org and office hours and IP ranges for the profile. Of course, without a doubt, you have to be an active user first to even be able to get access to the system. A second layer is the objects, for example, access to the correct floor of the office building. We covered this in section 4.4 when talking about profile settings. Are you allowed to enter your floor, or in other words, do you have visibility of the object? The next layer is our record layer, or for example, the correct room on the floor. We'll be covering this during the rest of the module. Which record are you allowed to access? What are you allowed to see? Think about the floor with multiple office rooms. The final layer is fields. For example, the storage cupboard in a room. We'll be covering this in the final module of this section. Are you allowed to see the field? And if you're allowed to, are you able to edit the field? In other words, can you access the storage cupboard that has stationery in it, as on the 5th floor in our big office building? Or if you're allowed to see it even, you might not be able to take it out, so all those settings we'll be covering later. Now let's then look at our data access model and with the definition first. The data access model gives a description on what kind of record access is required. It's the starting point in identifying who needs what. So we'll be talking about record access within the objects. That's a very clear distinction that you have to make. So there's 3 ways you can do this. First of all, you have public access. That means that everybody can see and edit any record that the profile allows on that object. That is the default model. Second layer is private, which means that users can access their own records, but they cannot see any other records. And they can't see it either in reporting or if they're using the search functionality. Basically, they live a bit in their own little world and don't have any idea what else goes around in the organization. Finally, you have the hybrid model. That's a combination. In my experience, that most businesses use that combination. Because for each object, you have to set if it's public or private. So most businesses use a combination of the two, whereby, for example, accounts are public, but things like opportunities are private. So, what do you do for reasoning to choose the private access? And why you then end up with a hybrid model? So first of all, you do that for security reasons. You might have information in the system that you don't want others to see. For example, you don't want other users to see HR information in the system or any financial information. Secondly, is visibility. You want users to only see what they need to see. This avoids clutter and showing too much or irrelevant information. It's only applicable when users look at the list views for an object, but it's also applicable when looking at reporting or performing searches. So then let's look about organizational defaults. You set that up in your sharing settings. And as you can see here a screenshot, it also explains you a bit in there what you need to do. But let's go into the org and actually do this. So here we are in our playground org and we are at home, of course, in setup. And what you are going to look for is for your sharing settings. That's on the security. And if you click on sharing settings, you see here all your standard organizational settings as have been set up for this specific org. This is standard playground org, so as you can see, there's not that many objects in there, and I also haven't created any kind of custom objects. But let's do and play around with the ones we have in there. So we click on edit. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to say the opportunities. They're going to be private. And my accounts, I want to be public read only. And all of the others I'll leave as they are. We go into a bit more detail in a moment what all these different settings are. But I'll leave it as is at this. So then let's click save. And again some pop-up messages, because we're changing things in the settings, it wants to make sure that you say, yeah, I'm fine with that. So I say, yeah, that's okay. And then you get here a yellow pop-up warning, and that says that because it's been initiated, it sometimes might take a little time to do the calculations. Because this is a very clean org, that probably takes seconds, but if you do it in an existing org, that might take a bit of time. So that's how you do it in the system. So let's go back to our presentation to go for some more details. So here we are back at the presentation. And first of all, how are you actually going to choose if you want a private model or not? So there's two clear questions you have to ask. And the first one is there a user who shouldn't see a certain record on that object? The answer to that is yes. You have to set it to private. So even if there's only one user in the system, in the whole org that doesn't need to see something, you have to set that whole object to private. Now, if that is not the case, then you still have to ask a second question is, shouldn't they be able to edit the information? So if you're happy to see the information, but you don't want them to do anything with it, if that's the case, you need to set it to public read only, which basically means the user can see it, but they can't do anything with it. If you say no, there's nobody who has either of those criteria, you can leave it a public read write. Basically, you give full access to that object to any user. Now, for a bit of reference and to make it easy to remember where we are, we sort of this flow diagram. That's used an awful lot and people have different ways of putting it together, but I like this one. It looks a bit like a roller coaster or a bow tie. And what you have on the left-hand side is our OWDs. You have your public read-write transfer, your public read-write, your public read-only, and your private. Where private is your narrowest way and your public read-write transfer, your most open way. Now, public read-write transfer is a bit of the odd one out. It looks similar to public read-write, but with read-write and transfer, that's specifically for leads and cases. We cover that further on in one of the next modules.